We have reached the next frontier of wokeness, trans-racial people. And if you know who Jovi Val is, it's been going on for a while. Watch this.
Tell me how you racially identify.
I identify as Korean. I used to live in Korea. I was living there for 1 year. I love the culture, I love the history, the people. You know, I've put myself through a lot of pain. I've had a lot of surgical.
Yeah, his surgeries have healed. I don't know that it makes him look any more Korean. Certainly does not sound Korean when I'm looking at him, but we'll continue.
So just to have more of a Korean aesthetic. I spend a lot of time learning the language, learning how to cook Korean foods. I came out earlier this year sharing that with the world. People didn't really get it.
She's like, oh, you came out, huh? As Korean, huh? Okay.
Not everybody will understand straight away, but I hope over time people will be kind of more accepting with me.
Cringing.
Transracial does not exist, and I think it is very, very harmful for us to push the narrative that it is possible to switch races.
I was not happy the way I was. So I went to Korea and I had the most incredible experience of my life. It changed me, gave me happiness, and people have no right to take that happiness away from me.
Okay, I'm gonna cut off there. If you guys are watching on PragerU YouTube, we're saying goodbye to you today. Go to my YouTube channel to watch the rest of the show. I'm gonna cut off for Instagram as well. Go to my YouTube channel to watch the rest of the show and see what we're looking at. Bye, guys. Link in bio. Okay. Unbelievable. So, another thing that's interesting about this is he's saying, I didn't even have this identity, 8-9 years ago. I went to Korea, I saw it, and I thought, oh, this is what I want to be. So instead of just appreciating a culture, which you can do by learning the language, by learning how to cook their food and doing that at home, you decided to take on this identity, which is what a lot of men and women are doing in this whole trans debate. They're going, you know what, I prefer to be perceived as a woman. I prefer the things that women typically do. I prefer the female stereotypes, or vice versa. Women saying, I prefer the male lifestyle. I prefer male stereotypes. I prefer being perceived as a man. And then going, you know what, I'm just going to identify as it. And not only am I just going to identify like that, I'm going to tell other people that that's what I am. And if they tell me that I'm not, they are bigoted, full of hate speech, they're discriminatory, and something should happen to them. They should be held accountable for not taking on my false reality.
Can't sit up here and say, oh, I'm suddenly a white woman. And if you as a white person say, oh, I can be black or I can be Korean, and I can't swap and benefit from the privilege that you benefit from, then it's clearly not an equal exchange. Because whiteness in this country has been set up in a way, how I interact in the police, how I interact with the medical system can result in me dying. Cultural appropriation essentially dictates people who are ethnic minority, whatever they do isn't really of value. You don't deserve to be associated with something that you've created because a white person has either renamed it or used it for their profit. And you are not a Korean man. No matter how much surgery you do, no matter how much of the aesthetic you adopt.
Nobody.
Now I want to put a transgender woman in front of her and I want her to hold the same energy. I guarantee you she will not hold the same energy for somebody who is transgender. Why? Because the argument that you just made is perfectly sound in that situation as well. She's saying here that a white man, because of his privilege, cannot take on a marginalized identity because they still carry the white privilege that they have surrounding that. In fact, it is in essence, white privilege to be able to even think that you could identify as another race. It's the same argument used towards Rachel Dolezal. Now, let's look at transgender women, okay? This is men. According to the left, men have privilege in the United States. They run this whole patriarchal institution that we're all living in and we've all been subjected to. But now a man can assume the identity of a woman, an oppressed and marginalized class, according to the left. And they have the power and privilege to be able to do that. And suddenly everybody cheers and claps and lets them join swim teams and beat out all the other females on their teams, going from rank 400 and something to rank #1. And this woman, I can guarantee it, I will bet $1,000 right here, this woman would sit there and go, that's great. I cheer on that woman doing that and being able to swim and taking on female jobs, taking on female roles in movies, taking on the idea that men can get pregnant. But the logic isn't sound because, again, you're allowing somebody who has privilege, according to your own beliefs, to take on a marginalized and oppressed identity. So is that man who is now a woman suddenly a victim of patriarchy? Have they suddenly been oppressed their whole lives since they've technically been a woman their whole lives? The logic is not sound here. And if we're going to get up in arms about transracialism, hold the same energy, folks.